Perhaps on a personal note, what made you pursue this gratifying but very, very wonderful and hard work?
I think first of all it was a calling, and at heart I'm a warrior and I'm a activist. And when I specialized in couples therapy, I realized that, you know, there's a huge gap in training in terms of sexual problems, sexual health. So most people won't even ask the question. And if you do ask the question, you wouldn't necessarily know what to do with the answer.
Mm.
And that's when I decided to specialize in that. Yeah, and it's amazing. It's a wonderful blessing for me, actually.
You know, the reason I'm saying hard work is not because treating women or couples or sexuality. When we had a quick chat before this interview, I just thought how much you need to actually work with people first to think it's okay, they're here, break down walls. It's not necessarily that the work is hard. I'm sure you're very passionate, but I was just thinking you're actually working in helping people think it's okay to treat it, is it not?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So why do you think healthy sexuality is a crucial component of us as human beings?
I don't think you can actually live fully, and that might be a very broad statement, if you're not in touch and you don't accept and find the joy in your own sexuality. Because it means if you can be mindful in the moment in your body and enjoy sexual pleasure, then it means you're accepting yourself, and it spills over into your relationship, into your family. And I always tell people, if you love yourself, you love your partner, and you love life, then you can also enjoy sex. So I think there's interconnectedness there. I'm not saying people that for some or other reason can't have sex. And maybe we should talk about what is the definition of sex, because is that penetration? No.
Exactly. That's a very important point.
It's about sensuality, it's about connectedness, it's about touch, it's making out. I mean, there's such a huge spectrum of which penetration is just that little spot. And I think we tend to focus and be so goal-oriented and focus on the orgasm, and we forget about the whole experience. The journey, it's not the destination.
Pressure. There's so much pressure for men and for women.
Yes.
Do you see it in your practice?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it can be quite devastating, you know, for us women especially, and very often it's what we project onto ourselves, so how we look, and you know, I need to go for a boob job, I need to do this or lose weight, or instead of, you know what, your partner, if it's a man, usually he just wants to know that you want to have sex with him and that you enjoy it, you know, and that you're passionate about it, and about him, he wants to feel wanted. So I think in many ways we overthink and we complicate it, and I think for women it is sometimes difficult to, you know, we wear all these different hats, and, you know, now you're a mum and now you have to be the lover. It's sometimes difficult to make the switch. But yes, there's pressure on how often and the quality of it, and what does it mean if we don't, and does it get it somewhere else? And for men now these days, we often see that younger men get erectile dysfunction, a lot of stress, I think women also, because women get more sexually empowered, men feel that pressure that they have to perform. And if a couple doesn't talk about it, then it becomes an issue.
Stress. You mentioned many hats and stress. Sometimes we actually hope that sex or any sexual activity will just happen spontaneously, and that we will just feel in the mood, and that everything will be just amazing for that half an hour, an hour and a half. I don't know how that myth was created, maybe by Hollywood, but what do you see?
I agree with you, because there's also the myth that sex is perfectly natural and naturally perfect. Instead of, we have to, first of all, you need to know your own body. You need to get to learn and get to know each other's bodies. So I don't think that these days it often happens spontaneously. And that's why I advise couples, you have to have a date night once a week where you connect, because it's about connection. Where are you at your most vulnerable? You're vulnerable when you have sex, eh? And vulnerability creates connection, but you first have to have that connection. So it's about creating time, like you do for everything else. And sometimes, yes, it can be a quickie, but sometimes you need a longer, more connected, sensual experience. But I also say the daily things that you have to do. Take a bath together or shower together and make dinner together. You know, use whatever you have. Make the best of what you have there. But it's about a consciousness and I think a very definite decision. I often tell couples, I say you must create a business plan for your relationship. How would you like it to be done today, in 5 years, in 10 years, and what do you need to do to get there? So we need to do a date night, we need to go away for weekends and whatever, we have to have sex. I will initiate once a week, you can once a week, how are we going to do it? Talk about it. It doesn't just happen. Maybe at first, that first year when you have all those like neurochemicals in your brain, then it doesn't.
Spoke about sexual trauma or women that are traumatized. I'm sure there's men as well with sexual trauma, or even any trauma that basically just kind of disturbs the functioning of sexuality. So the first aspect of the question is, do you find that any kind of work that you do helps with overcoming sexual trauma, or at least to kind of bridge from a person who's traumatized to get back into healthy sexuality? The second part, can you even use sensuality or sexuality to actually nurse some elements of trauma, if it makes sense?
It does make sense. I think it's quite complicated, and I think it depends on the individual, it depends on the trauma, the impact of that. But I live it, and I see it every day, where people they're so brave and they face their demons and they transformed and healed. So it is possible, but we have to realize sometimes it takes a bit of time and it's very, very hard work. So you can imagine if you've experienced sexual trauma, for instance, then it's not safe to be in your body, so you dissociate. And we don't even always realize how often we're not here, we're somewhere else. So the moment you deal with trauma, you can come back into your body. And that is sometimes quite an interesting thing for people to, this is how I'm actually supposed to feel. And then they can become grounded. And then it's the one shift, positive snowball effect almost.
At a social, let's call it a societal level, how do you think we can just try move from having sex as a duty into something that it's really transformative and healing and fun? What is a society? How can we even, because there's so much judgment around sexuality. We are expected to be goody, and if you're a religious person, you don't get guided. How can you mix the two? I know very few priests, or I'm from Israel, so very few rabbis or any people that allow themselves to take that courage to say it's okay to have a healthy sexual life. So as maybe a little rebellious.
And we're actually created as human beings with this wonderful sexuality, and you have to embrace it. And yes, I think it's still going to take a long time. We're doing our best, but I think we have to take the responsibility first of all to ourselves and say, if I'm sex positive and I have a healthy sex life, a healthy relationship, I'm comfortable with my body, then I can also talk to my friends about it. I can educate my children in a sex positive way to enjoy their own sexuality. And if I'm okay with my body, my kids are okay with theirs. And so I think that's where we should start. And then layer by layer, eventually, there would be, I think, a better understanding of and positiveness about sexuality, because what we see is that we're so repressed by guilt and shame and duty and, you know.
And then comes judgment and hatred and trying to, or even suppression, doesn't exist. Don't have sex till you're married and all of that just doesn't exist. Shame, your hormones are raging, you're 16, 17, and so much guilt. Yeah. Let's talk about the fun stuff, sensuality and sexuality. What's the difference in your, from your perception?
I think sexuality, I would define it as a focus on pleasure, satisfaction through whether it's your own body or with someone else to hopefully orgasm. Doesn't have to be always like that, but there's a sense of satisfaction in it. But you need a whole lot of sensuality to get there. So I always say, you know, your body is your largest sexual organ, your brain is your most important. And sensuality would mean you incorporate all your senses, 5, 6, 7, how many ever you want to talk about. And I think people tend to forget how important the sensuality is. If you think when you first started dating your partner and how you made out and the butterflies and everything that happened in your body, and then we forget about it. And now, okay, get into bed and 1, 2, 3, there we go. Then you lose a very special part of that connection. Does that make sense?
It does. When I talk about sensuality, I always think that sensuality is also a way of living. You know, really using, being present in your body. Absolutely. And then when you're sensual, you can connect to the desire to even want to be sexual. You know, it exists in us, this desire. Just that many times it's been daunted and suppressed and shamed. Then we don't have this, it's like, you know, bad girl. Then you just say, okay, I won't lift my head anymore. And that's why if you connect to sensuality, sometimes can be a key to wanting to have sex and sexual instincts, and it's lots of fun, sex, just we forgot about it.
Absolutely.
So sexual pleasure, what is it really connected in the human body? Okay, because people think, oh no, sexual pleasure, it's almost a myth, it's like a bit of arousal or whatever, but actually our sexuality is connected to many systems. What other system can improve? So when we are basically, what is it connected to? And when we are in touch with that, what can it actually benefit in our body, you know, the way we live? Because people think it's such an isolated animal in a box, our sexuality. It's almost autonomous.
Yes, yeah.
You know, but just to give you an idea, there's a wonderful research that shows that every couple of seconds we actually have a thought about sex. But it's usually suppressed because our body also wants to survive. So that made me think and wanted to ask you, what is our sexuality connected to? What other systems, and what actually, if we improve that system, what else can benefit?
Well, I think, you know, your sexuality is connected to all the systems, hey? And you should be able, when you're able to connect it and to integrate it and to make it part of everything else, that is where you find the balance. And obviously when you have sex and even sensuality and orgasm, there are so many neurochemicals in your brain, that you have a surge of all those hormones. So it's like, it improves your mood. It's like a mild antidepressant. It's good for your health, generally speaking. It's good for your teeth and for your skin, and so if you think about it, it's good overall. And I think that was, you know, how was part of the purpose of sex as well. It's one of the best sedatives. You sleep better, you relax. You know, the vasopressin, the oxytocin, the bonding hormone. So immediately now that's the cement in a relationship. We feel closer. So just in terms of what happens in your brain, it's actually amazing. So I think it's connected to all different systems, and obviously also emotional. Very, very often women say, why do I cry after I've reached orgasm? It's because of the surge of all those neurochemicals, and obviously you being in that moment and you feel vulnerable but you feel close, and because now the fight flight, the survival mechanisms not on high alert, now you relax, now you can actually feel those feelings.
One last question. You just triggered it. You said now you can relax. So basically we have two nerve systems, right? Mm-hmm. One is the ones of remind me, I think there's two nerve systems that work. One is
sympathetic and
parasympathetic. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. When we have sex or when we are in a state of pleasure, you're actually saying we can actually feel. So there's something that I'm discovering, or just reminded now, or discovering thanks to you, that actually when we are in that state we can feel. On the one hand, I'm sure some people are scared hearing that because it's hard to feel, but on the other hand, what a wonderful tool to feel, to be in your body, to feel alive. You know, so many people feel like they live in parallel to their lives. So maybe we can just...
It's about feeling alive. I think that's what the word I was looking for.
Is it? Feeling alive. I know it from experience, but it's hard to persuade, women to say just this is my experience. So when you actually see women in couples, do they describe that feeling of all of a sudden being more present, more in their being, more in their body, more even joyful?
Absolutely.
So is that the parasympathetic or sympathetic? It's more the relaxing.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's then when your nervous system is completely relaxed.
Yeah.
Okay, and you can tell me a little bit more about that.
I think because you then not on high alert, you're not in survival, you can actually be present. You feel the emotion, you feel what happens in your body. So you're also more connected or conscious of your partner and of energy, energy. Even if we just then lie next to each other and breathe, there's a communication in that energy. So, and I don't think people always know how to label it or to give it a name, but they would say, but we're more connected. And now the little small other things that we usually thought about, no issue anymore, because we then also feel more that we can trust each other, and now we can talk about other things that we might not have done before. It's the walls come down. But you can only get to that point if you feel safe enough, and if you feel safe enough to be in your body.
Women that don't feel pleasure, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50. Is it possible? Is it a myth that every woman can feel pleasure? Is there a magic trick? Are you born with it, or can you achieve it with practicing, with learning?
I know you can achieve it. But often we need to break down our own walls and our own filters. And it starts with you saying, but I need to own that. I need to decide that I'm important enough, and it is important for me to experience that sexual pleasure for myself, nothing else. And then to work through whatever those barriers might be, guilt and shame and trauma, whatever, pain, medication, to find out what's the reason. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's just, we can't switch off our mind. So yes, definitely it's possible.
I'm going to invite our listeners and viewers to join us for the second episode, which we're going to talk about pain while having sex. Thank you so much, Dr. Almarie Mulder-Craig.
Welcome. Thank you.